A breakout 2020 campaign shows promise for the Dawg Pound. Can they add to that in 2021? Answering that and more right after the intro.
Perfect.
Before we get too far into things, subscribe to support the channel and of course, get the bell on to know every single time I'm dropping a video. And with that out of the way, it's on to the content. So, the Cleveland Browns offseason has somehow gone under the radar. I don't feel like enough people are giving the Browns enough praise for the amount of moves and the level at which these moves are being made, because these are a lot of high impact moves that are going to help the Cleveland Browns not only get better in 2021, but put them right into the Super Bowl hunt. So let's just take a look at a lot of those moves, starting off with defensive end Clowney, formerly of the Tennessee Titans, most recently the Seattle Seahawks, and of course was the former #1 overall pick via the Houston Texans. Clowney is going to pair opposite of defensive end Myles Garrett and create a tandem on the outside edge to go and get after quarterbacks. If Clowney is up to snuff and is worth the money, this could be an absolutely nightmarish pass rush tandem, and I'm incredibly excited to see how it's going to pay off. Next up are a couple former Los Angeles Rams, Troy Hill and safety John Johnson III. Troy Hill and Johnson both had stellar 2020 campaigns with the Los Angeles Rams before hitting free agency and decided to come over basically as a dynamic duo to add to a struggling Cleveland Browns defensive back set. So look, the Cleveland Browns secondary has gotten even better. The defensive line has gotten even better, but they haven't even stopped there. In the NFL draft, adding cornerback Greg Newsome, their first round pick, another stout cornerback addition. You could have Troy Hill playing the nickel, or you could even have Newsome playing the nickel, opposites 1, 2, and 3 with Denzel Ward in the mix. Look, this secondary went from being pretty much the weakest link in that Cleveland Browns defense to now one of the stronger units on the field. The Cleveland Browns secondary has gotten even better, and heck, even the linebacker core has gotten even better. One of my favorite picks, linebacker Jeremiahmora, formerly of Notre Dame, was the second round pick by the Cleveland Browns, one of the better linebackers in this year's NFL draft. In my personal opinion, he was right up there with Zaven Collins and Micah Parsons on my list. So Jeremiahmora is going to be an absolutely dynamic linebacker in that secondary. He can go downfield and make some tackles in the backfield, and he can play pretty well in coverage. I think he's just going to continue to add to a defense that on paper already has a lot of nasty talent. And then finally, defensive lineman Marvin Wilson, formerly of FSU, was an undrafted free agent that for a long time people thought was a first-round caliber player, an NFL-ready player, has a stout build, super strong upper body, and basically has the work ethic that people are looking for at the NFL level, but for some reason just slipped completely off of draft boards after some tumultuous incidents at FSU. He could very well be that centerpiece in the middle of the defensive line for the Cleveland Browns. So Marvin Wilson, an underrated, undrafted free agent that very well could help lead the Cleveland Browns to the promised land. And look, the Cleveland Browns already had a pretty solid roster going into this NFL offseason. A lot of these players are going to be teaming up with the likes of, again, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, and then offensively, one of the best offensive line units in the entire NFL with guys like Wyatt Teller, and then last year's first round pick, Jedrick Wills. And then, look, the rest of the offense has a ton of star power. One of the best running backs in the entire NFL, Nick Chubb, paired up with Kareem Hunt, who's a dynamic back in his own right. At the wide receiver position, you've got Odell Beckham Jr., who last year was injured, but coming off that injury, apparently has shown all signs of 100% ready to go. Paired up with Jarvis Landry, and then at tight end, Austin Hooper, and then behind all of that, making things work, you've got quarterback Baker Mayfield being led by head coach Kevin Stefanski, who last year was the NFL Coach of the Year. So a ton of talent on this roster, and the Cleveland Browns' strength of schedule this year after having a really strong 2020 campaign is going to be reflective on that schedule. The 9th toughest schedule in the NFL via CBS Sports has their opponents' win ranks at at 0.518%. So a pretty tough schedule, but this roster and this coaching staff seem more than prepared for it. So with all that out of the way, let's just get to the actual 2021 NFL regular season prediction, starting off with weeks 1 through 5, and they're starting things off against the AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, followed by the Houston Texans, the Chicago Bears at Minnesota, and then rounding out that 5-week stretch at the Los Angeles Chargers. And to be completely honest here, it's a really tough week 1, but the rest of that schedule is incredibly manageable. I would not be shocked if the Cleveland Browns started off their season on that 5-week stretch going 4-1. The Browns offense and defense, again, are just so stacked up and so deep with talent. Don't be shocked if they start off 4-1, start off hot. Week 6 through 10 see them taking on the Arizona Cardinals at home, then followed by the Denver Broncos, Pittsburgh Steelers, then a couple road trips at Cincinnati, and then at New England. So a few tough games here in the mix, right? You got the Arizona Cardinals and in New England, but then the Pittsburgh Steelers, an in-division rival. All of those AFC North games, all of those in-division rivalries are all tough matchups regardless, but of those 3 games, I wouldn't be shocked if they go on to win at least 2 of those. Don't be surprised if during this stretch they even go maybe 3-2, and this would bring their record to a 7-3 clip. Weeks 11 through 15 see them taking on the Detroit Lions at Baltimore, then the bye week, and then following that bye week, they're taking on the Baltimore Ravens again at home, and then rounding things out with the Las Vegas Raiders. With their bye week being in week 13, surrounded by the same team on both sides, it's going to be a huge leg up for the Cleveland Browns going down the stretch. Week 13, basically the later you can get those bye weeks, the more pivotal they actually are, because later rest during the season is going to just reduce injuries across the board, and getting into those later months when the weather's getting a little bit colder, the hits start taking a toll a little bit more, the Cleveland Browns are probably going to be a little more refreshed than some of these other teams in the AFC. But during that stretch, I wouldn't be shocked if they go 3-1 with a loss in Baltimore, but then possibly getting that win back in Cleveland. So a 3-1 stretch here would bring them to a 10-4 record. And then finally rounding out the season, weeks 16 through 18, see them traveling up to Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers, then visiting Pittsburgh at Heinz Field, and then rounding out the season at home versus the Cincinnati Bengals. So this final 3-game stretch is really going to just determine playoff seeding, and with a volatile quarterback situation for the Green Bay Packers, who really knows if Aaron Rodgers is going to be there? I mean, considering things haven't really been moving between Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, who's to say what's actually going to happen there? If I project he's going to be there by, well, week 16, who knows if Jordan Love's going to be the quarterback this season, Rodgers takes the season off, who knows what's actually going to happen there? So with that volatility in consideration, I'm just going to project they go maybe 2-1 during this stretch to finish out their season at a 12-5 clip, certainly making the playoffs and in the hunt to win the AFC North. So this postseason is absolutely going to be interesting. If my projections so far are correct, I got the Cleveland Browns being a pretty big threat and possibly a Super Bowl contender this year. I don't think the possibility of an AFC Championship appearance is all too far off. The Cleveland Browns, again, roster stacked up, really good coach in Kevin Stefanski, and the rest of the AFC also got better, and the Kansas City Chiefs made a few moves, but I wouldn't say that the Chiefs are so far and ahead of the rest of the AFC. Not to say that Patrick Mahomes and company are not at a high caliber level, and they are still, in my opinion, the favorites in the AFC total, but don't be surprised if maybe somebody sneaks the rug out from underneath them during the playoffs. Again, it's a long NFL season. There's going to be injuries to every single roster that people have to account for. And who knows, maybe the Cleveland Browns get a few lucky rolls along the way. Maybe they're in a great position. I wouldn't be shocked if people are considering the Browns one of the favorites in the AFC to go to the Super Bowl among teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Tennessee Titans, and of course the Buffalo Bills. So, look, regardless, I think a playoff berth at the very least is a successful year to continue to build for Kevin Stefanski and company. The Cleveland Browns have managed the cap really well, and with an increase in cap very likely next year, the Browns are still going to have an opportunity to add even more talent to this roster. So look, a pretty hype season for the Cleveland Browns. I just want to thank you so much for watching this video all the way till the end. Of course, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe to support the channel, and of course, get the bell on to know every single time I'm dropping a video. My name is Tristan Blake Rines, and I'm going to catch you in the next one. Adios.